you very much for joining us. My name is Matias Guerrero. I am the French for International Business Coordinator at Georgia State University, and I will be moderating this panel with the U.S. Department of Commerce. And with me, I have Priscilla Scarpacci, a graduate student in the French Master's Program at GSU. On behalf of the Atlanta Global Studies Center and the Center for Urban Language Teaching and Research, I'd like to welcome you to GSU's Global Careers Series. This series brings together globally minded organizations to talk to students about the rewarding opportunities that await them. We're very fortunate that Ms. Heather Mccloud, a commercial officer with the U.S. Commercial Service at the U.S. Department of Commerce, is here today to talk to us about internships, employment, global skills, and professional development. Thank you very much, Heather. Before I turn it over to Heather, I'd like to go over a few housekeeping items with you. First, just know that this session is being recorded, so we ask that you please keep your microphones muted to reduce any noise during the presentation. At the end of the presentation, there will be a Q&A for about 15 to 20 minutes, and you'll have opportunities to ask questions to our speaker. So feel free to type your questions in the chat during the presentation or raise your hand. You have a feature, I believe it's under reactions. If you click on reactions and you have the option to raise your hand. My co-moderator, Priscilla, will ask your questions to our speaker if you use the chat, or give you the opportunity to unmute your microphone and ask your question directly to our speaker if you chose the raise hand feature. And now I'll turn it over to our esteemed speaker, Ms. Heather Mccloud. Good afternoon, Heather. How are you doing today?
I'm good. Thank you, Matias. Thanks for having me.
Sure. Thank you for your time. We really, really appreciate it. So, Heather, let's start. I know you have a lot of experience in international trade, international security, international development.
Mm-hmm.
Do you think you could tell us a little bit more about yourself? I think our audience would love to hear more about you, your current position, your past experiences, so they have a better understanding of how you got where you are today.
Mm-hmm. Okay, thank you, Matias. Welcome, everyone. Thank you so much for your interest in the U.S. Department of Commerce and learning about careers, not only with commerce, but also overseas with the Foreign Commercial Service. So thank you for your interest first and foremost. As Matias said, my name is Heather Mccloud, and I am now a commercial officer with the U.S. Department of Commerce. I started in August of 2019. That was when I was sworn in as a commercial officer, and have been, and I'm currently based in the United States. Even though I'm a former commercial service officer, I'm still based here in the United States on a domestic tour before I head overseas. And right now I'm actually in the process of finding out where I'll be going next, either today or actually next week. And next week is also my birthday. So it's going to be a birthday present for me to know where my life is going after this tour. So commercial officer based here in Atlanta. And prior to coming to Department of Commerce, I started my career, actually been with the federal government since graduating grad school. And I started out with the U.S. Department of Homeland Security in their Office of Policy. I spent 5 years there. And then I transferred to U.S. Customs and Border Protection, where I was in their Office of International Affairs. And there I had wore a couple of different hats. I was the Kenya desk officer, which meant that any sort of policy or border security policy that we were looking at in Kenya, I was the point person for all of our programming. And then I was also the Mexico desk officer, which, as you can imagine, was a lot when talking about Customs and Border Protection and Mexico. You can imagine that was a lot. And then I became the Middle East branch chief for all of our Middle East programming when it came to border security, international trade, for Customs and Border Protection. So when I was there, when I was in CBP, I wanted to definitely live and work abroad on a more long-term basis. And so that's what drew me to the Foreign Commercial Service. I eventually ended up getting a job as a commercial officer. So here I am today, and loving, want to definitely answer any questions you have about getting into an international career. But one thing I would say is that, I always knew that I wanted to live and work overseas, but it took me a while to get to that point. And along the way, there were opportunities that I had on a domestic side to still work on international affairs, and still get that overseas experience, even though I didn't live overseas. So I want to say that there's still a lot of opportunity, even though you're not necessarily a foreign service officer. There's still a lot of opportunity on the domestic side to do international affairs and to do a job that has an international focus.
Wonderful. Thanks, Heather. Do you have any, so that's exciting, a birthday and working abroad. That's wonderful.
Oh, I know. We'll see. I'll definitely let Christy and you guys know where I get posted. And someone asked me about my graduate major. I actually majored in international development and a minor in economic development. So, and my focus of, my regional focus was Africa. So if that gives you any idea, I studied international development, but went into international security. So, as long as you have the skill sets, it doesn't necessarily matter which area you're focusing on, as long as you have the skill sets.
Wonderful. And we'll have the opportunity to talk more about those skills. Any ideas where you're going to end up, or it's really too soon to tell?
It's really, well, one of the things for the foreign service is that you have to be worldwide available. And so, even though from my first tour, my Atlanta tour, they said, Heather, you're going to Atlanta, and I came. Now I have a choice. You can do what they call a bid list, and you have 8 choices that you can submit and write why you're the best qualified to be in those countries that you put on your bid list. But they always say, based on the needs of the service and based on worldwide assignments. So you have to know, even going in, even though you're choosing, it's still really up to the needs of the service. So it's really an open book. I don't know. I really don't know.
Well, let's see. We're
yes.
ready to find out. So I'll just move on to my next question, Heather. And I see questions starting to pop out in the chat. We're not ignoring you. We'll ask your questions to Heather during the Q&A. So, well, thank you for sharing your fascinating and impressive career with us. Now that's okay, I would like to focus a little bit more on your current position. And like you said, since August 2019, I believe you have been working for the Foreign Commercial Service, a service within the U.S. Department of Commerce. Could you please tell us more about what is the Foreign Commercial Service and what is it exactly that you do for them?
Sure. So the Foreign Commercial Service is one of 4 federal agencies that is congressionally mandated to be in the embassies and consulates overseas. So the other 3 are, of course, everyone knows the State Department. They're the ones that govern, U.S. policy in different countries and man the embassies and the consulates. There's also the U.S. Agency for International Development, USAID. They have a foreign service. And then also the U.S. Department of Agriculture. Not a lot of people know this, but they have the Foreign Agriculture Service. And then here comes Department of Commerce with the Foreign Commercial Service. The Foreign Commercial Service's mission is to help U.S. exporters or U.S. businesses export overseas. And the way that we do that is we have a 2-pronged approach. First is on the domestic side, which is where I am sitting right now, we have about 100 U.S. export assistance centers across the country. So in major cities across the country, we have what we call a U.S. Export Assistance Center, or USEAC for short. And this is the first place where U.S. businesses come to start to begin to think about their export strategy. So on a day-to-day basis, I act kind of like a consultant for US businesses, helping them think about, okay, where do they want to go? Why do they want to go there? Is it smart for them to go there in terms of, is there a market for their product or service in that country? Also figuring out what makes their product or service different from other people who are also in this space, or other companies also in this space. And then who are the specific end users? So who would be the target population that we're looking for to use your product in that country? So we help walk them through that process or those questions, and then also help them walk through, okay, now that we have an idea of what you have to offer and kind of an idea as to where you want to go, that's when the other part of the approach, which is having commercial officers on the ground in those countries, in about 77 consulates and embassies abroad. Those are the people who are actually, they know what's going on the ground. They have an idea as to the market entry strategy. They have an idea as to who are the important and key players in that country. And then the main thing is that they understand, they do the matchmaking. So US business needs to be matched with a partner, a viable partner in that foreign country, and make sure that that foreign partner, that they do what they say that they do, that they are who they say that they are, that they're located where they say that they're located, so that it prevents any kind of fraud, and try to mitigate those kind of risks. US businesses do not like operating, or businesses for that matter, do not like operating with uncertainty, and do not like operating where there is an unknown. And so the extent that we can mitigate that risk or that unknown by providing viable partners, that's the essence of the commercial service, making those connections so that US businesses can export. And then the whole point of that is that in creating more of a demand for US products and US services, it increases the bottom line of the US business, which we hope ultimately translates into more US jobs and opportunities. So that's the foreign commercial service in a nutshell. Remember, two-pronged approach. We have 100 offices throughout the country here at the US Export Assistance Centers, and we have commercial officers abroad with, of course, locally trained staff who are also the eyes and ears for us as well on the ground in different consulates and embassies overseas. And that's where I'll be going when I find out next week. So, so that's the gist of the foreign commercial service.
Wonderful. Thanks, Heather, for the very detailed response. And thanks also for contributing to the growth of our economy and for helping our local businesses expand internationally. I think this is critical to do so in our globalized world. Now that we have a better understanding of what you do for the foreign commercial service, could you tell our audience why they should choose a career as a commercial officer? In other words, why is it such an interesting career to pursue?
If you like moving around every 2 or 3 years, if you like being in different cultural environments, if you thrive off of that, if you have a personality that's adaptable, that is open and willing to learn new languages, and absorb new places, then this is the opportunity for you. A lot of people don't know, but the Foreign Service, whether through state, through USAID, or through the Agricultural Service, provides a lot of benefits. And some people would say, okay, a federal government job doesn't really pay you that much compared to a private sector job. But I would encourage you to look at the full compensation benefits package when it comes to weighing options in the federal government versus the private sector. And specifically with the Foreign Service, you have the ability to learn a language. You get paid to learn a language. You get paid when you move overseas, the the government helps pay for your things to be moved with you. If you have school-aged kids, they are able to receive good quality education for free at international schools overseas. And then also when you are overseas, since you're in embassy housing, this is a huge plus, is that you don't have to pay monthly rent, and so all of that, those benefits kind of outweigh or should be weighed in with your calculus when you're thinking about a private sector job and a federal government job. But I would say the main thing is, if you are gung-ho about public service and also about international travel and international affairs and representing your government abroad, then this is definitely the career for you.
Wonderful. That sounds great. The I'll move on to my next question. Now that you've convinced our audience, commercial officer, who and what kind of a person, and I'm thinking in terms of skills, of knowledge, of competence, is the U.S. Department of Commerce, and more specifically, the Foreign Commercial Service, looking for?
Thank you. That's a good question. I get asked this question a good amount. So for the foreign service, for the Foreign Commercial Service, the main skills that they're looking for in a commercial officer is someone who can lead a meeting or facilitate a meeting. A large part of a commercial officer's job is simply keeping the ball rolling. So you have a client, a U.S. business that comes to you and you're getting them started on their export strategy. How do you keep them moving along in the process to make sure that they get from point A to point Z, which is sealing a deal with a foreign counterpart? So you need to be able to lead meetings, to have an objective, to take notes, to do recaps, to do all of those things that will essentially keep the ball rolling. Another big thing that the commercial service is looking for are people who have that networking skills, those interpersonal skills, because think about it, you are convincing, for lack of a better word, a U.S. business to take your recommendations as to where they should go, how they should do it, and they're ultimately putting their funds and their resources and their energy and their time into the recommendations that you make. So you have to establish a rapport and build trust almost immediately when you're working with a U.S. client. And then the third thing I would say is definitely writing properly, writing concisely, writing, excellent writing skills, because not only are you writing memos of some sort, but you're also writing to businesses, and they need to understand complex, maybe issues, with getting into a market in a very plain manner. And so those are the things that I know that the commercial service is looking for, those interpersonal skills, the ability to build trust, leading and facilitating meetings, project management, making sure that you're taking a company along in the process, and the ability to think critically, because not all companies are going to come to you with the same problems or the same issues with exporting overseas. And so the ability to assess quickly and to really think, okay, where is this company at? How can I help them? What can I offer? What can I bring to the table? Those are the skills that the commercial service is looking for. I know, we've been dropping in the chat some more ways or some more skills and attributes. Definitely look at the 13 dimensions of a foreign service officer. That's from State Department, but that is also a wealth of information in terms of what the Foreign Commercial Service is looking for. I think they have social self-awareness or cultural adaptability, the ability to go into a country and to adapt, still maintaining a sense of who you are, but to adapt to the culture and to build rapport with the people that you're working with, the people in the embassy. That's all attributes that the Foreign Commercial Service is looking for.
Wonderful. Thanks, Heather. We heard interpersonal skills, leadership skills, networking skills.
Mm-hmm.
Those are all skills that we're really trying our students uh, to grow and work on while they're studying, so they're ready for their global careers. So thanks for highlighting those skills. Um,
Mm-hmm.
I think this is the perfect time to remind our audience that you can ask questions in the chat or raise your hand, and I promise you, we'll answer your questions. We're not ignoring you. I promise. So Heather, now that we have that we know the type of person that the Department of Commerce and the Foreign Commercial Service are looking for,
Mm-hmm.
um, could you tell us more about some of the entry-level requirements for a career in the U.S.
Mm-hmm.
Department of Commerce and the Foreign Commercial Service? We've already talked about skills, but maybe you could talk to us about some of the entry-level requirements and
Mm-hmm.
the skills that the perfect candidate should have
Mm-hmm.
in order to apply.
Mm-hmm. So for the Foreign Commercial Service, what I'll do is I can compare it to the State Department process, which I think a lot of people are more familiar with. So with the State Department process, it's a test and then a written test and then an oral assessment, which is another way of saying an in-person interview or an interview. And so for the Foreign Commercial Service, it's the an application that appears on usajobs.gov. And for those who don't know, usajobs.gov is the website for federal opportunities. And maybe once a year or once every other year, there is an announcement for the Foreign Commercial Service on USA Jobs. Now, the key with USA Jobs in particular is that you have to read the announcement. Like I encourage people to print out the announcement and to read the announcement like from the beginning to the end, because I've known people who I've referred to of course apply to the Foreign Commercial Service, and they are immediately told that they're not eligible because they forgot a part of the application. They didn't read the entire announcement, and then and as a result they forgot a part of the application and therefore didn't make it past that round. So you want to make sure that if there's a writing sample that needs to accompany the application, you do the writing sample. If there's a questionnaire that you need to fill out, that you do the questionnaire. You want to make sure all parts of the application is submitted. And then the second thing is your resume, your federal resume is not going to be the same as a private sector resume. Your federal resume has to reflect the requirements and the experiences that are called for in the announcement in your resume. And you have to follow a specific format where I don't know if you guys have heard of the STAR format, where it's situation, task, action, result. And it's, explaining what experience you have or you have had that demonstrates the skill that the announcement is looking for. So in that sense, your federal resume will not be one page. It will probably be longer because you want to cover as much ground in your resume to show that you have all of the applicable or the required skills and knowledge and abilities to do the job. Now, in terms of a requirement, definitely the first thing is you have to, for any federal job, you have to be a US citizen. And then the second thing is that for the Foreign Commercial Service, I have seen people who have masters and who don't have masters, and they have, but they have considerable experience. So whatever it is, whatever combination, you just want to make sure that you meet all the requirements in the announcement when it comes out. So I would literally check off, if they have the requirements part, check off all of the different things that you need to have in your application and the necessary skills that you need to highlight in your resume to reflect what they're looking for in the application. I know that was a long-winded answer, Matthias, but I wanted to make sure, because when I mentioned usajobs.gov, some people are like, it's a black hole, it's a polar vortex, it's, there's nothing, every time it just sucks my resume and I never see it again. But I want to make sure that people understand that you have to that you have to really craft your resume to meet the requirements and the skills that they're calling for in the job. And this means that it's not waiting until the 11th hour to do these applications. You have to take the time necessary to do these applications. And then the last thing I'll say is that sometimes on USA Jobs, they have questionnaires, and sometimes people undervalue or underestimate their skills in the questionnaires, and they say, oh, I'm a beginner or I'm a novice. If you can make the link on your resume that you have the experience in different settings, then you're not a beginner and you're not a novice. You're an intermediate or an expert in that. And so give yourself the credit where credit's due, especially when you can back it up in your resume, and don't undervalue yourself, because when you do that, you score lower on the questionnaire, and there's a certain cutoff point where you don't even make it to the next round because you scored lower on the questionnaire.
Thanks, Heather. That's really, really helpful. I actually took a lot of notes. This is very, and
it's a lot. I know it's a lot, but I know I can see people like, oh, USA Jobs, but there is a way to work USA Jobs. It's just figuring out. And then one more thing: if you are graduating from grad school, you are a GS9. If you're graduating from undergrad, you're a GS7. So another reason why people get thrown out is because they're an undergrad at a GS7 level and they're trying to apply to jobs that are GS9. You're automatically going to get booted out of the running because you do not meet the requirement for that job if you only have an undergrad education.
Okay, well, that's good to know. So yeah, make sure that you read the application and all the requirements and the format of your resume, if I understand you correctly, is there's a very specific federal format. You called it's called the STAR format.
STAR, STAR, okay. Situation, task, action, result. Okay. And it's just like 3 sentences instead of doing, usually in the private sector, it's like 1 sentence about what you did, but it turns out to be more like 3 sentences, 3 or 4 sentences instead of a bullet.
Right. And sounds good. And so don't sell yourself short. If I understand, applicants may have a tendency to not give themselves credit for their accomplishments.
Exactly.
Right. So, well, thanks, Heather. That's very, very helpful. So many of our participants in the audience today are still in college or they just graduated, and I suspect that they really want to be prepared and ready to enter the workforce after graduation. So what should these students who are listening to us right now do to better prepare for a career in the federal government, more specifically in the Department of Commerce? In other words, what should they do now while in college or right after graduation that will set them apart?
So the first thing I would say is start looking at your current experiences from now and start making those start following the STAR format. So is it, revamping your resume, but also thinking about the stories behind, or the experiences that can highlight different competencies. So what are the experiences that highlight your leadership skills? What are the experiences that highlight the fact that you work on teams and can lead a project or be on a team and be a good team player? What are the experiences that show that you know how to handle a conflict? Because inevitably, when you're looking for a job and also, for your resume, you will get asked these questions like, tell me about a time where, you had a troublesome team member. How did you work through it? And what was the result? And so you want to start from now preparing for those interviews, preparing your resume to reflect all of those experiences that deal with leadership, that deal with teamwork, that deal with interpersonal skills, that deal with, project management and writing. You want to start cultivating what I like to call a bank of stories, so that you're starting to prepare yourself for those interviews and for your resume. The second thing I would say is be creative about where you get your experiences. So I saw that there was put up in the chat 2 opportunities for internships. The virtual student federal service program is an excellent bank of project-based internships throughout the federal government, that it's all virtual and it's all project-based. So, you're focusing on one specific thing. It has to be based on publicly available information and not confidential, because the whole internship is virtual and we're not doing clearances and things of that nature since it's not in person. So it has to be of a certain nature, but it still gives you experience into, working on a federal project, working for a specific agency, and then using that to network. So I would say that's my third thing, is definitely networking. I made the mistake of waiting until I graduated to start looking for a job. And actually, I didn't even start looking for a job. It was like, I was like, I'm free. I'm gonna go and travel and stuff like that. But then reality hit, and I was like, okay, I need a job. And the way that I got my first job, I worked on Capitol Hill for this Senator Dick Durbin. And the way that I got my first job was through alumni connections. And so definitely use your alumni as a starting board, as a springboard to tapping into their network, because the only way that you'll know what opportunities exist is by, one, coming to things like this, but also by talking to people and putting your name out there and getting an idea and a feel for what's available. And then my fourth thing is when you're thinking about your career strategy, is to think about it in terms of buckets or angles or whatever you want to call it. But if you're interested in international affairs, there's more than one way to do international affairs, whether it be in the private sector or in the federal government. And so you can think about nonprofit organizations, think tanks, the philanthropic arms of major organizations like the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation. You can think about different angles to still get you towards that goal, and then put your eggs in different baskets, so that if one thing falls through, you still have another thing to lean on. And that happened to me. I was banking on the State Department, banking on passing that oral assessment. I made it through the other 2 tests, and only to fail the oral assessment and not make it through. But thank God, I had another opportunity with Department of Homeland Security, kind of like slowly percolating in the background. And that's actually what I ended up taking after graduating. So yes, different, look at the internships, network, start thinking about your bank of stories, and making sure that you are thinking about your career search in terms of angles, baskets, more than one option. You want to keep your options open.
Thanks, Heather. That's really, really helpful. Any advice for students who are interested in pursuing careers in the Foreign Service more broadly?
Yeah, for the Foreign Service, definitely. If you can study abroad, definitely study abroad. If you can learn, it's not a requirement to learn another language for the Foreign Service, because they teach you and they pay you to learn a foreign language. But it does, yeah, I know. But it does help to have another foreign language under your belt. Thank you for putting up the part about the fellowships. There are specific fellowships for students who are going from undergrad to graduate school that are feeder programs into the Foreign Service. And in the chat, Priscilla put up 3 fellowships, the Payne, the Pickering, and the Rangel fellowships, that are very good in preparing you to take that Foreign Service test. It's all through state and USAID. The Foreign Commercial Service does not have a fellowship right now, but hopefully in the future we will. But those 3 fellowships are excellent because they pay for your graduate school opportunity. They pay for your internships in the summer, and it's excellent way to get into the foreign service. As like as a part of a cohort. And then also, if you're specifically interested in USAID and US Department of State, there are diplomats in residence across the country. Priscilla put in the chat the diplomat in residence who serves the Georgia or the southern region of the United States. And I know them. They're very good, and they can guide you and help you navigate the test, know when the test is coming up, know when the announcements are coming up, and they're an incredible resource. Alexius represents USAID, and she's the development diplomat in residence, and Alan is the State Department diplomat in residence. And Alexius is based at Morehouse, and Alan is based at Spelman, but they serve the whole southern region. So those are key resources that for the Foreign Service specifically that you can tap into. And also Priscilla will put in my LinkedIn profile. If you have further questions about Foreign Commercial Service, I'll be happy to assist.
Wonderful, thanks. So there are many opportunities for our students. We have a few minutes left before we move on to the Q&A. So I would like to ask you one more question. So now that our audience knows about the Foreign Commercial Service, that they know why they should pursue a career as a commercial officer, and most importantly, what it takes to pursue such careers, do you think you could walk us through the application process? I know we've already talked about the oral assessment and USA Jobs, but if you could just walk us through, and that will be my last question, through that process.
Definitely. So this is why I say it's good to have different, don't put your eggs in all in one basket, because the process, it could go faster in the beginning and then it goes slower. So you apply on USA Jobs, you get everything in, you make it to the next, you get invited to the oral assessment. So they look at your application, you make the cut, you go and you get invited to the oral assessment, and you pass the oral assessment, and you get placed on what they call a list, a rank order register, and that's where you have to kind of wait. So in the process of that, you're doing your medical clearances, you're doing your security clearances, and depending on if you've traveled extensively before applying and coming on to commercial service, it may take a little bit of a while to get through your security clearance. So just be mindful of that you would want to have something else happening or working while you're waiting on or being in school still while you're waiting on that process to kind of work itself out. Then once you get off of the rank order registry and you're invited into a class of commercial officers, and you go through a training, and you get sworn in. So all of that can be like a year, maybe a year and a half. So I won't tell you. You have up to 2 years to be on the rank order registry before you have to do the whole process again. But usually they take people off of the list in due time, well in advance, before their name expires, quote unquote, on the list. So I would say about a year for the whole process to work itself out.
Okay, so from what I understand, take your time to fill out your application. Make sure that you read everything, that you fill all the requirements, but also just know that it's a long process. That you should plan accordingly. Well, thanks, Heather. I think you are about to answer a few more questions from the audience. So before we let you go, I promise we'll let you go at some point.
It's okay.
We'll turn it over now to Priscilla for the Q&A. So if you ask your questions in the chat, Priscilla will be asking your question to Heather. If you have raised your hand, she will call your name and give you the opportunity to unmute your microphone and ask your question directly to our speaker. We ask that you please mute your microphone back and unraise your hand after your question is answered if you've used the raise hand feature. So Priscilla.
All right, so I'll be asking the questions as they were received in the chat or as I noticed that the hands are raised. So the first question was, what does a tour entail?
Thank you. So a tour means that you are in your assignment, and usually your tour is it starts off as 2 years with the opportunity to extend for another year. I think the longest that you can extend to stay in a place is 4 years, and then you need to move on, basically. So a tour can either be domestic, which is what I'm doing right now, domestic, or overseas in one of our consulates and embassies. But yes, it's a tour equals an assignment.
All right, thank you so much. The next question is, what gives someone hiring preference points for the Foreign Commercial Service Agency? So an application question.
So what I mentioned before is making sure your experiences noted in your resume ties to the requirements and the what they're outlining in the application. So that's the first thing. Like I mentioned before, the master's, if you don't have a master's, but you have considerable experience, that's fine. That's even, I won't say even better, but that equals out. So don't think that because you don't have a master's, that doesn't make you competitive. It makes you just as competitive as someone who has a master's, especially if you have a lot of experience that meets the requirements that they're looking for. And then the last thing is, I'm not sure about the veterans preference. I'm actually not sure about that, but I know for a good amount of federal jobs that veterans do get additional points for their service. And in addition to, I think, Peace Corps service and some other previous service, but I'm not sure about that. And then the last thing I would say is the questionnaire. Remember when I was saying that sometimes people underestimate themselves and they score themselves lower than what they should. So as long as you're not lying, don't lie, but as long as you can back up your claim to be an intermediate or an expert with experiences on your resume, then you can check those boxes and not underestimate yourself. So that's what I would say for that.
Thank you so much for your response. And then I have another question regarding students that are pursuing a graduate degree. They were wondering what kind of opportunities are available now with the U.S. Department of Commerce.
So I mentioned before the virtual student foreign service, the virtual student internships. Another thing for you guys to remember are the pathways internships, and I would encourage undergraduates and graduates alike to look at pathways internships, whether it be at Commerce or at State, but they're available throughout the federal agency. And pathways internships are internships that turn into a full-time employment opportunity at the end of the year. So specifically for Commerce, pathways internships are given through the USACs, so through the U.S. Export Assistance Centers. And they come up once in a while because it depends on that office's need for a person, because remember, they're promising to give you a position. So they have to have funding for that position after the internship. So they're a little bit sporadic, but they do come up as an opportunity. And actually, that's a good entry point to getting into the Foreign Service, because you come in, you're a pathways intern, you work at the U.S. Export Assistance Center, you gain those specific commerce-related experiences that they're looking for. And then a lot of people move from being what we call a trade specialist in the USACs to a commercial officer. So that's like a good path that I've seen a lot of my colleagues take is first, trade specialist at the U.S. Export Assistance Center, move over to a commercial officer. And then the pathways again, some people, they get tripped up If you're an undergrad, you apply to the GS7 announcement. If you're a graduate student, you apply to the GS9 announcement.
Perfect. Thank you so much. And we also had Maya McDonald that raised her hand to ask a question. And then I have some more questions from the chat as well. But Maya, looks like she was next.
Yes, thank you. So I actually asked the question about other opportunities.
Oh, yeah.
And so I actually applied to Pickering and all that. So I was just kind of curious, like outside of those pathways fellowships, are there anything else available?
So as I mentioned before, I'm glad that you applied to the Pickering and the fellowships. Outside for commerce specifically, we don't have fellowships. It's mainly getting an internship, a virtual internship, or the Pathways internship program for commerce specifically. So those are the two ways that I've seen that I've seen people come in. And then usually people transition from the UZACs to the Foreign Commercial Service. So I didn't follow that route. I had a previous federal career before getting into Commerce Department, but that's what I've usually seen. But if you connect with me on LinkedIn, I can get you more information if there are any other ways besides that. But those are the ones that I do know.
Perfect. Thank you. And I also just wanted to say thank you for your insight on the STAR format. I actually work on campus for the Office of Career Services, and we're always telling students about STAR formats, networking, and tailoring your resume. So it's really cool to hear you like talk about how you guys utilize that too.
Because people think that, with the federal resumes that it's all about keywords, but it's not just keywords. It's you showing that you have the experiences that they're looking for and taking out the guesswork. HR people don't like guessing. So the more that you can draw the line for them, that you have the experience and the clearer it is, the easier it is going to be for you. Thanks, Maya.
Thank you.
Okay, perfect. The next question we had was, what are the top U.S. business sectors abroad?
That's a big question, but I'll try to answer that. So you'll find all U.S. business sectors overseas. By region, definitely energy, oil, gas is a huge sector. Advanced manufacturing, that's a sector that I've been really particularly involved in. And advanced manufacturing could be, I've worked with a client who sells gaskets, oil pipelines, and fluid sealants for breweries and and also in hospitals. And then on the other side to like augmented reality, virtual reality, and that kind of technology. So advanced manufacturing covers a huge gamut, and you'll find US businesses in every part. Another sector that people don't think about is education, and that's a different kind of export for us. That export is bringing international students to the United States to study. And that is a huge sector that we focus on promoting our US universities and colleges to attract foreign students to educate themselves here. And another one is, of course, pharmaceuticals. Pharmaceuticals is a huge sector. And also environmental. And we know with this new administration, renewables and environmental technology is going to be a premium that we're trying to highlight. So those are the ones that I can think of that we have a competitive advantage in. Design and construction is another one. But the main thing that I've been seeing so far is that U.S. businesses not only want to do business with foreign companies, but they're engaged in knowledge transfer. So it's not just U.S. companies coming in and doing something and then leaving. It's a lot of creating a or enhancing the opportunities for local businesses in those countries to then be able to use the technology that we're bringing, So that's the business sector in a nutshell. I hope that, Ashley, I got your question, got to the heart of your question. But I'm involved in, I forgot automotive too. Automotive and advanced manufacturing are my the top industries that I help clients with, and textiles. I just named a lot, but we're involved in a lot.
That is very true. So the next question we had was someone wondering, what is the difference between what commercial service officers and trade specialists do in the Commerce Department in Washington, and what they do in the offices throughout the world?
Very good question. So in the US field, you have people who are in the US Export Assistance Centers, and you have trade specialists. They're the people who they're there no matter what. They are in the Atlanta office or they're in the Los Angeles office. That's where they live. They stay there. They have their sectors that they have expertise on, and that's they're helping US businesses day in, day out in that USIAC. Commercial officers could be placed in a domestic office, but our main mission is to be in the embassies overseas. So when a trade specialist has helped develop the strategy for a US company or business and has identified the right market that they should go to, that's when the commercial officer takes it from there. And that's when they start the process of finding a partner on the ground, or facilitating the meeting, or facilitating the market entry strategy for that company in that country. And then the people in Washington, D.C., they're more of the policy experts. So, they're helping to keep us big picture connected with the executive, with the office of the president and the policies that the administration is wanting us to focus on. So they help us to keep in track. And also, if there are any overarching trade barriers or any overarching thing that makes it hard for US businesses to do business in that country, we definitely call in desk officers. We definitely call in the people at headquarters to give us the big picture thinking, and also to help us push through some of those trade barriers when we see them.
Perfect. And the next question kind of ties into your response. It was, do companies ever consult you about moving their headquarters to a particular location abroad, and what might factor into your response?
So we don't deal with companies looking to put their headquarters overseas. That's out of our purview. What we are focusing on is them having their business based here in the United States, but then exporting their items overseas. Now, if out of that relationship where they found a partner overseas, they are shipping a lot of things, to, let's say, Ghana. They're shipping a lot of things to Ghana, and they find that it's best to maybe set up shop in Accra to facilitate the business better. We help put them in touch with other agencies that have not only the bandwidth, but have the mission to help them do that. And so that's where we hand it off, to other agencies, maybe the U.S. Trade and Development Administration or the Development Finance Corporation. We hand it off to the appropriate agency for them to help. We just don't say, oh, we don't do that. You're on your own. We help facilitate or point them in the right direction where they can find that help.
Okay, the next question was from a personal experience. So what's your favorite memory from your time abroad, or your top three if you can't pick?
Okay. Well, I got a chance to visit the Oprah Winfrey School for Girls in South Africa. That was amazing. And I doing safari in Kenya. I can never go to a zoo after going on a safari. And what's another one? Going to the beach and eating like wonderful food in Cape Verde. Those are my three best memories. But that's just to say that when you go abroad, if that's the kind of experience that you're looking for, and this is the kind of career that you're looking for, you will find beauty in any place that you go. And so that's, going back to my bidding, I told myself, Heather, it doesn't matter where you get placed, because wherever you go, you'll be able to find beauty in that place and be able to thrive. And I genuinely believe that for myself. And I believe that for you guys, when you're thinking about the Foreign Service, that's how you have to think. And also think that it's a lifestyle. It's not just a job. It's not just a career. It's a lifestyle. And you have to make sure, if you have families, that they're on board with that as well. And, I've also heard that when you're doing your bidding, you bid with your family. You ask them where they want to go, where do they think they would like to go? Because if they're not happy in that country, you're not going to be happy in that country doing your job. So it's a lifestyle that you're committing to. I saw Abby did a hand clap. That's funny.
Okay, and the next question was the Foreign Commercial Service your major career goal, or was it something you stumbled upon through your professional journey?
I'll give you the short answer to that, which is, I'm an anomaly. I am an anomaly. And I applied for the Foreign Commercial Service. Remember I was telling you eggs in different baskets? I applied for the Foreign Commercial Service after I got a job with Homeland Security. And that was back in 2012. And I did the process. I did the oral assessment, got on the list in 2013, but because of budget cuts, furloughs, hiring freezes ×2, I stayed on the rank order registry. I stood on that list. And it wasn't until 2018 or 2019 where they were like, okay, we can take you off the list. And so I'm an anomaly. I had to actually really think about it, because I was already a mid-level manager with Customs and Border Protection, and I had to be an entry-level person taking this job. And so I had to really tell myself, why am I doing this? And a good mentor said to me, she was like, Heather, she gave me 3 questions. She was like, why did you apply in the first place? What are you leaving behind? And what would you be going to? And once she gave me those 3 questions, it became crystal clear that I needed to leave CBP and go to commerce, because I've always wanted to do something like this. I've always wanted to live and work abroad, and I just need to be reminded of that. So I guess I stumbled on it, but it just took time, and I'm actually glad the way how it worked out, because I got to have a lot of federal experience before going into this job, which I think makes me a stronger worker for the Foreign Commercial Service.
I am so sorry. It is almost 1 o'clock and we have to let our speaker go. So I know, I know there's more questions in the chat. I believe, Priscilla, you provided the LinkedIn link for Heather's a LinkedIn account. So if you want to reach out to Heather, you can do so. I'm sorry we cannot answer all the questions, but we have to be mindful of the time. So Heather, if that's okay, I'll just highlight a few key points of the presentation before we let you go. So thank you very much for your time and for sharing your experience and advice with us. We really, really appreciate it. So I'll just highlight a few key points. There's many career opportunities for all of you at the U.S. Department of Commerce, the Foreign Commercial Service, but in other institutions as well. And Heather highlighted the many benefits of the job. Don't just look at the salary in itself. There's many benefits that come with the job. And also, thank you, Heather, for talking to us about the application process, for reminding students that they need to use a federal resume and the STAR format that with very specific guidelines. Make sure that you read the application and that you complete everything, and that you plan enough time to complete your application as well. And I thought it was really interesting when you talked about those the advice that you have for students, for applicants. You know, invite them to think broadly and not put all their eggs in the same basket, and be creative with their experience.
Yes.
And I thought one point that you made was really, really interesting, and is to really show evidence of your skills and your experience. So really think about what you can say, what you can do to convince the recruiters, and don't forget networking as well. That's a really important aspect of the job. And I think don't underestimate yourself was also great advice that you had, Heather, for our students. And thanks also for the skills, leadership skills I've noted, interpersonal skills, build trust. We don't often think about it. So thanks for reminding us. That's an important skill as well. These are all skills that we value and that we teach at GSU, at the Center for Urban Language Teaching and Research, but also at the Atlanta Global Studies Center. So thank you very much, Heather. So thank you all for participating in the Global Career Series. Our next event will be on Thursday, March the 4th from 12 to 1 with CARE International. To attend, please register with the link that I believe, Priscilla, you will provide in the chat. Thank you all. And thank you, Ms. Heather Mccloud, and please stay safe.
Thank you. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you
Have
so
a
much.
good rest of the day.
You too. Bye-bye.